Well, more of the same as the Minnesota Wilds build in early deficits, rally to tie, and end up losing to the Colorado Avalanche 3-2. Let's break down all the particulars in tonight's Locked On Wild postcast.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into a Locked On Wild postcast, another Locked On Wild postcast, I should say, as the Minnesota Wild come up short tonight by a score of 3-2. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. More of the same here tonight for the Minnesota Wilds. 3-2 loss. They fall behind by 2 goals. They rally to tie, and then they end up losing because there were a ton of penalties here tonight. And you get a turnover in the neutral zone that gives Colorado additional opportunities in the offensive zone, and they capitalize on it and come away with the win. And it's frustrating because I wanted the big talker here tonight to be the fact that we got as close to last year from Kirill Kaprizov as we have seen so far this year. He was doing a lot of those little things that he has previously, working behind the net, setting up players for shot opportunities. He was pushing the puck into the zone. He scored a power play goal here tonight on a nice deflection in front of the net. He looked closer to what we've seen over the last couple of years than he has in previous seasons. And so that was what I was hoping to be able to pull out of the hat first here in this one. But again, it's the same, pretty much the same story that we've seen from this Wild team. Now I'm going to start with the good things, because I thought the penalty kill looked good tonight, even though they did give up one power play goal to the Avs. They did a good job for the most part of just keeping the puck out of the general front of the net. But you're trying to rally to tie down 3-2 with 2 minutes left in the game. And Matt Boldy gets called for an interference penalty right at the top of the zone. Gets tangled up with an Av skater coming into the zone. You can't have that type of penalty. And there was a lot of frustration with the officiating throughout the course of the game here tonight. But that's just something you have to deal with it. If you don't like what's going on from a game perspective, you just have to rise above it. You can't allow that frustration to leak into your play and lead to getting frustrated and kind of melting down there when the game is at its most critical point. Whether or not that was a legitimate penalty on Matt Boldy is one thing, but Ryan Hartman earlier in the game was pretty pointed with one of the officials, and that official ended up, the officials, they keep track of that kind of stuff. And so this is a Wild team that has over the years been one that has been frustrated with the officiating, and it seems like it leaks into what they're doing. And again, the turnovers have been something that has plagued this team pretty much all season, and I gotta shout out John Merrill for the turnover that led to the go-ahead goal, and it was Kurtis MacDermid who scored the go-ahead goal. And as Alex Micheletti noted on Twitter, he played 3 minutes tonight. And another interesting thing that I wanted to discuss is what seems to be kind of a tactical approach difference between a coach in Jared Bednar, who we regard as one of the better coaches in the NHL by far, and something that Dean has done throughout the course of his tenure. Brett Marshall tweeting out earlier tonight. Something to note strategy-wise, Jared Bednar versus Dean Evason. Nathan MacKinnon played 13 minutes, 40 seconds in 5-on-5 tonight. He spent 9 minutes and 16 seconds, which is 68% of that time on ice, with Cale Makar, and 7 minutes, 45 seconds with Devon Taves. Kirill Kaprizov played 12 minutes, 10 seconds at 5-on-5. He spent just 4 minutes and 4 seconds, 33% of that time with Jonas Brodin, and 3 minutes, 52 seconds of that time with Brock Faber. He skated the most with Zach Bogosian, 5 minutes, 27 seconds, and John Merrill, 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Bednar makes a point to deploy his best defensemen and forwards together, whereas Evason tries to shelter his weakest pairing with his top line. Not saying one is right or wrong, but though one of those teams is tied for the division lead and has won Stanley Cups and the other has lost 6 games in a row and hasn't exited the first round in nearly a decade. It is, I think, a point that needs to be considered is this lineup, why do we continue to see that? Because it's not like this is a first-time instance here tonight. That has been a pretty common practice. And those two guys are third-pairing defensemen for a reason. And so why would you not try to maximize what's going on the ice? And I don't know. There just is a lot that you can pick apart from what this team is doing so far this season and just kind of question why. Why is this happening over this? Why is Freddie Gaudreau getting second line minutes while Joel Eriksson is continuing to be an anchor for the third line? Eriksson scored tonight, also lost a couple of teeth, didn't miss a shift, by the way. So plus points for Joel Eriksson just continuing to be an absolute warrior out there. But there just is a lot that is done that just leaves you kind of scratching your head. Now, Gaudreau didn't get more minutes than Eriksson Ek. Eriksson Ek had 22 minutes tonight. Gaudreau with 14. So it's not as though Eriksson Ek isn't playing as much, but it just, I look at some of the things that these other coaches do when the Wild are matched up against them, and you just kind of scratch your head as to why some of those things happen out on the ice. And I'm seeing comments mentioned here that again, it's a step in the right direction. It continues the better play from the Sweden series, but the Wild also had at one point a 21-minute stretch in which they didn't get a shot on net. And you can't, against a team like the Colorado Avalanche, you're going to have stretches where they control the action. But you have to, you can't go almost an entire, you can't go over a period without a shot on net, especially against a guy who I think is a pretty underrated goalie in Anton Georgiev, who was good tonight. He had some really key saves for the Avs to keep this game as low scoring as it was. You can't have stretches of just that lull play. And that's what we see here is you see a good start. You see the other team able to weather that and score to take the lead. Then you see a lull where everything gets tense and it's just players are looking unsure of what they're doing. The other team maybe adds a goal to their lead to make it, in this case, 2-0. You see all of the energy that you have, all the energy you have in the tank, mustered in to try to rally to tie. And then at the end, you've got nothing left. And this is it's just like clockwork that it happens on almost a nightly basis. And we saw it again here tonight. And now it's 6 straight losses, and was pointed out to me on Twitter that this is tied for the longest losing streak since the 2013-2014 team for longest in history of the team. So it ain't working. what the plan is. It's looked better over the last few games, but better is still not good enough. And so that's why the Wild lost here tonight. Now, as we noted, there was some good. Kirill Kaprizov, I thought this was one of his better games of the season. But the other guy that's getting paid to be one of those top line scorers in Matt Boldy, again, mostly absent. So we'll talk about that. We'll get to listener comments, all that and more as we continue tonight's Locked On Wild postcast after this. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all of the stress and change, something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. If you've been thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNHL to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNHL. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is also brought to you by Game Time. And if you, like me, enjoy living life in the moment, you have probably gone through the buying tickets to an event the day of experience. Oftentimes you find tickets that are far too expensive, or worse yet, you go to the event and you find that your seat view is completely obstructed. Game Time is here to help erase all of that ticket buying uncertainty and make it a stress-free experience. Game Time offers last-minute tickets, plus flash deals, and best of all, views from all the seats in the venue. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Final score once again here: the Minnesota Wild fall 3-2 to the Colorado Avalanche. They have now lost 6 straight games here this season, and again, the theme that I'm rolling with here for tonight: better is not enough. And so bright spots, again, Kirill Kaprizov, thought he looked really good. Did a lot of the things that we've seen him do over the last couple of seasons. And so whether it was basically 2 full weeks off that allowed him to get over whatever he is dealing with, or just some time away from the ice allowed him a little bit of a breather mentally to get back to it. He looked better here this evening, but Matt Boldy called for that penalty late, but just again continues to not be able to make impacts for this team. And Boldy, we saw tonight, he got knocked off of the top power play. He had just 12 minutes of ice time in this one. And so he just continues to not be able to get it done here for the Wild so far this year, and got called out by Dean Evason after the game. Dean said, yeah, Boldy's got to be better. And until Boldy is better, unless somebody massively steps up to carry the entirety of the load, entirety of the team on their back, this is what we're going to continue to see. Is it's just there are pieces, but overall the overall product is still just not where it needs to be. Let's get to your comments. We'll start with GA007. So are the Sharks really that bad we can't beat them for top shot at Celebrini? Yeah. They I know they've won a few games so far this season recently, but I tell you what, the Sharks they're certified bad. And so they're going to, barring somebody suffering a major injury, that would then allow them to fall lower than the Sharks. I don't think anybody's going to be even close to where they're at in the standings. And I'm even including the Wild, who, as we know, are pretty close to them in the standings at this point. But I don't see many teams having the bad luck to match them because they're truly bad. Now, there are still a couple of good players in the top 5, and this is something we'll take a look at more in depth next week. But there are still good players in the top 5. It's just, again, Celebrini is going to be, one of those once in a few years type of prospects, just like Bedard, not at that same level, but he's going to be a good player. And so that's going to be a consolation for them, but that's not going to be near enough to get San Jose up off the mat. So I guess good for them, but they got a lot of work to do to get back up after this one. Dustin mentioning, in all seriousness, they played better tonight, need to be more disciplined on not taking penalties, and Boldy needs to find his game. Could not be more right on all fronts. And we talked about it in the pregame. The Avs take a ton of penalties, and the Minnesota Wild power play, with the exception of the Eriksson goal on a nice feed from Zuccarello, with the exception of that power play, which let's keep in mind as well, the Wild had a 5-on-3 at that point, and the 5-on-3 expired. The Wild get the power play goal moments after, but they did a lot of passing on that 5-on-3 too, and it was the same thing on most of the power plays tonight, just too perimeter-centric. They did not, and a lot of the times the shots that you send towards the net just don't hit it. So that power play still needs a lot of work. I tweeted about how it looked like the Harlem Globetrotters out there, where they're just passing the puck around and you end up trying to, make everything look as cool as you can. I would much rather just see some goals. That's what a power play is judged on at the end of the day. And there were some opportunities, but just not nearly enough to try to get past Anton Georgiev. And that's why they lost tonight. So, Jake joining us tonight. What's up, Jake? What do we have to do to make sure John Merrill never plays for us again? I don't think we're going to, unless he gets waived. He's here for the season. That was made, I think, pretty pertinently clear with the moves that were made after Alex Goligoski was brought back off of long-term injured reserve. And again, I don't like it. It just, what you have with those two guys on that third pairing, and I don't know. I guess I would just rather see more of the top two pairings than that third pairing. That's about all I got for there. We got a couple of comments on Marcus Foligno. Young Tane joining us. Forgot Foligno was even on the team. And CG, Foligno has done nothing for large stretches of the season. Yeah, Foligno tonight, he went 15 minutes, no hits. He did have a penalty, did have 3 blocks. And again, this is, I think, kind of something that a lot of people have questioned with this team is, why were the extensions necessary before the season started? The notion that this team is better with Marcus Foligno on the team than without, you probably would have gotten a little better performance in a contract year, as opposed to just now being locked in for 4 seasons. Yeah, I'm not sure why all of that needed to happen as quickly as it did. I know the reason given is that you didn't want to risk those players getting to the free agent market and not having enough money to be able to retain them. I guess I would rather roll the dice than have everybody locked in, and now you have really nowhere you can go as this season progresses, because now you're back in cap purgatory with Goligoski back off of long-term injured reserve. And unless you pull money off of this roster, you're not getting anything back in return that is even worth helping this team out. So purgatory, I think, is a perfect way to describe what is going on with this team so far. Quadrum joining us. Rossi and Kaprizov looked really good. Kirill even made a spinorama behind the back pass. Still don't know why Merrill's on the ice. Yeah, again, I wanted that to be the big takeaway from tonight. Maybe it needs to be that this was as good as Kaprizov has looked so far this season. He looked he had burst to his game. He was able to make plays that we haven't seen him be able to make earlier in the season, and he was aggressive. And I think all of those little parts were missing from his game, and so to see that tonight was super encouraging. It's just a shame that it again came as the result of a loss. Looking at some of the other comments here tonight. After the second Avs goal, Dean looked like he was losing his cool. Safe to say he's been feeling under pressure. I'm sure he has, because it seems like a lot of people on this team have started to feel the heat and the frustration. And, the common refrain is that everybody needs to play better. But again, it wasn't enough. And until every facet of this roster put together starts to really get it put together, this is going to continue to happen. Now, Filip Gustavsson tonight had some really good saves, and I think this is something that we have seen throughout the season for both goalies is we're not getting as many of those elite level saves this year, and it's gone from maybe one goal that you wish you had back to more like two. And so I don't think Gustafsson was, as high up the list in terms of the reasons that the team lost tonight, because you just offensively, you didn't generate enough to be able to help him out. And so I think, you can look at what Gus did against Ottawa, and you can look at what Gus did against, and let's not undersell what the Avs are doing. The Avs are a great team. And so the fact that they controlled possession for good portions of the game tonight, that's what they do. But it felt like offensively, again, the offense was the highest rung of the problems here tonight. And so and that's been another common thing with this team, is that you just spin the wheel, and that's going to be what goes wrong on that given game for this team. And it leads to many exasperated looks and just trying to kind of talk my way through it here in these postcasts. Gary joining us. Rossi is for real. That was a nice shot from Rossi that Kaprizov was able to deflect in to lead to the Kaprizov goal. And again, you look at what Rossi did here tonight. Got 16 minutes. He picked up an assist. He was called for a penalty early on in the game. Again, there are a lot of those tonight. But he continues to battle. And I think that's something that we see sparingly from different parts of this team. Rossi brings the battle level on a nightly basis. And so if he can even do that, if he does that at a minimum level every game, then his overall production is just going to look so much better than what some of the other guys on this team do that kind of go through those lulls, because he's battling, he's mixing it up for pucks along the boards. He just is engaged in the game pretty much every time he's out there. And so I've been super impressed with what we've seen from Rossi so far this season. I know his production offensively is going to be a byproduct of how this team does. And at points, that's going to go quiet. But again, if he continues to bring that battle level, then he's just going to continue to be one of the bright spots for this team so far this season. Consistently their best performance, Mike says. Actually showed some fight. Boldy looked feeble, but liked what I saw from the other players. They have been unwatchable, but tonight was better. And it was. It just, you go from large stretches of games where it's just mostly uncompetitive to battling back from 2 goals down in this one. But it just still, the lulls were what led to the Avs being able to get the upper hand here in this one tonight. Dustin asking the multi-million-dollar question. At what point does Guerin make the move and let Evason go? And I'm here to tell you, I don't think we're going to see that unless this season goes completely off the rails. Guerin has been adamant that he thinks Dean is doing a good job. He's been adamant that he hasn't been able to give him a full roster. And so as long as that continues to be the overarching theme coming from up above, I don't think a coaching change is coming. And so, like it or not, I think that's just where we're at with that situation. And I don't think unless now, if we're at six straight losses, if they get to, I don't know, I don't even want to put a number on it because I don't know if that number is going to be enough to where it would happen. It just doesn't seem like it's something that is entering into the train of thought of Guerin or even higher up. And honestly, I think for it to happen sooner than later, it would have to come from Leopold, who would have to just say, hey, we got to do something. I don't get the sense that it is going to be something that comes here as soon as everyone would prefer that it did, because overarching theme here from GA007, Guerin is the one that put this roster together. It's his guys. He's been very adamant that he hasn't been able to give Dean a full team yet. And so I don't think it's happening this season. And so, again, until Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov get going, until Boldy picks up his game, this is kind of where this team is at this point. And so I think it's going to wrap it up here for tonight. It's late. It is Thanksgiving weekend. And so I'm going to call it a night. Wild will play on Sunday again against the Detroit Red Wings. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to yet another Locked On Wild postcast here tonight. Appreciate the comments as always. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their Thanksgiving weekend, and you have a chance to enjoy tomorrow and Sunday as well. I know I'm going to take the opportunity to do so. It's been a long season already, and we've got a long way to go. So appreciate everybody's comments tonight. Make sure, if you haven't already, that you subscribe to Locked On Wild on your favorite podcast platforms. Also, make sure to join us on YouTube to join one of the biggest comment sections. What's up, Jesse Pierce? Join one of the biggest comment sections on YouTube. And, enjoy your weekends. Wild have lost 6 in a row, and we'll try to go get them again on Sunday. This has been yet another Locked On Wild postcast, brought to you once again by Game Time. And join us for more Wild content here on Locked On Wild, which you can find every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.